Let's go to Tasmania now and catch up with Liberal Senator Eric Abetz. Thanks for joining us, Eric. There's so much big news coming at us as we deal with this crisis. It's hard to put into a historical context the idea that Australia now, well, as of 9 p.m. tomorrow night, will close its borders to all foreigners. That's the antithesis of what this country's been about for 200 years.
Unprecedented circumstances require unprecedented action, and the action taken by the Prime Minister today on all the advice available to the nation's leaders is the correct approach to take. New Zealand is following suit, and yes, we have been a welcoming country. I in fact have been a beneficiary of that myself and my family as migrants, but today we have a health situation that requires us to look after the most vulnerable within our community, to try to protect them as much as possible from the coronavirus, and in circumstances where the vast bulk of those that have tested positive have come back from overseas or have been from overseas, it makes good sense to try to limit that cohort from impacting Australian society.
It's incredibly dramatic, yes, but we all understand the rationale, and of course it's like asking you how long is a piece of string, isn't it, when you try and get any sense of how long this might be in place for?
We have no idea as to how long these measures will need to be in place, and that is why I think the approach taken by the Prime Minister and Treasurer, being affordable, scalable, is the correct approach. You take it step by step on the advice that you have at the time. You don't knee-jerk react, you don't panic, you remain calm, you remain considered and take the decisive action that's needed. And I think the Prime Minister and Treasurer have come through this with flying colours.
Now, given all that, we are a federation, of course, to state the obvious, but we're a federation where we've always allowed the issues of immigration and entry and exit to this country to be an issue for the federal government. Yet your state, Tasmania, today has imposed these restrictions on people from Australia coming into that state. They can come, they have to go into 2 weeks isolation. It seems a very severe thing to do within a federation. It seems even stranger now that as a country we've banned any foreigners coming into this country, so surely Tasmania's step is unnecessary.
Tasmania has the oldest population of any state in Australia, so we have the most potentially vulnerable people here in Tasmania. Secondly, we do have the benefit of being an island state and therefore have the capacity to protect ourselves in the manner that the Premier has announced. And as a tourist state, can I tell you, this will impact severely, and so this was not a decision taken lightly. This was a decision taken with one thing in mind: the health, well-being and welfare of our older Tasmanians and those that are the most vulnerable from catching this disease. So this was not a decision taken lightly. It was considered. The Premier sought advice from various people, stakeholders, and indeed the Chief Medical Officer in Tasmania fully supports this decision, and I think it's the right one. It's a tough one, necessary one, and we in Tasmania will all pull together to make sure we get through it. But yes, Tasmania is a different case because we're an island state.
Now, Federal Parliament meets next week. Not all politicians will be going there. The numbers will be down. But overall, there are 17, I think, Tasmanian politicians who have places in Canberra. How many of them will be going, and will they have to go into self-isolation for 2 weeks when they return?
As I understand it, federal MPs that go up to Canberra will be exempted because the guidelines that the Premier is about to publish in relation to those that can come back are emergency service people and other essential services. They won't be required to self-isolate and quarantine themselves. But for the record, at this stage at least, I'm one of the lucky ones that will be allowed to remain in Tasmania, and I look forward to having a quieter week. than those of my colleagues that will be going to Canberra from around Australia. But keeping in mind as well...
If you could excuse a bit of levity from me in dealing with such a serious crisis, but it's going to be dinner-choking news to a lot of Australians to find out that politicians are essential servants.
Look, I can understand the cynicism, but if you want legislation passed through the Parliament to allow the stimulus to go through, etc., then you will need parliamentarians going to Canberra to pass that essential legislation.
From every part.
The cynicism.
Indeed. From every part of this great federation. Yeah. Thanks for joining us, Eric. I appreciate it.